Hello, Temple friends, and welcome to episode 42 of TempleCast. I'm Jim Gennady, pastor of Temple United Methodist Church in North Coventry Township, Pennsylvania. Today we will hear readings and prayer for Friday, June 19th. This date, June 19th, is an important day in American history. On this date in 1865, Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, and read his General Order Number 3. This is what it said. The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts, and that they will not be supported in idleness, either there or elsewhere. This day became known in the African American community as Juneteenth, and remains a day of celebration for Black Americans. If you'd like to know more about Juneteenth from that perspective, go to the website juneteenth.com. JUNETEENTH.com. Here is a prayer which the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote as the closing to a speech entitled "Some Things We Must Do," that he delivered in 1957 at the Holt Street Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. God, grant that right here in America and all over this world we will choose the high way, a way in which men will live together as brothers, a way in which the nations of the world will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, a way in which every man will respect the dignity and worth of all human personality, a way in which every nation will allow justice to run down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream, a way in which men will do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with God, a way in which men will be able to stand up, and in the midst of oppression, in the midst of darkness and agony, they will be able to stand there and love their enemies, bless those persons that curse them, pray for those individuals that despitefully use them. And this is the way that will bring us once more into that society which we think of as the brotherhood of man. This will be that day when white people, colored people, whether they are brown or whether they are yellow or whether they are black, will join together and stretch out with their arms and be able to cry out, "Free at last, free at last. Great God Almighty, we are free at last." And here is our one and only reading for today from the book of Leviticus, chapter 25, verses 1 through 12. We'll also hear verses 39 through 41. The Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when you enter the land that I am giving you, the land shall observe a Sabbath for the Lord. 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard, and gather in their yield. But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of complete rest for the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap the aftergrowth of your harvest, or gather the grapes of your unpruned vine. It shall be a year of complete rest for the land. You may eat what the land yields during its Sabbath, you, your male and female slaves, your hired and your bound laborers who live with you, your livestock also, and for the wild animals in your land, all its yield shall be for food. You shall count off 7 weeks of years, 7 times 7 years, so that the period of 7 weeks of years gives 49 years. Then you shall have the trumpet sounded loud on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the Day of Atonement. You shall have the trumpet sounded throughout your land, and you shall hallow the 50th year, and you shall proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. You shall return, every one of you, to your property, and every one of you to your family. That 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. You shall not sow or reap the aftergrowth or harvest the unpruned vines, for it is a jubilee. It shall be holy to you. You shall eat only what the field itself produces. If any who are dependent on you become so impoverished that they sell themselves to you, you shall not make them serve as slaves. They shall remain with you as hired or bound laborers. They shall serve with you until the year of Jubilee. Then they and their children with them shall be free from your authority. They shall go back to their own family and return to their ancestral property. It's worth noting that there is little evidence and lots of debate about when the Jubilee year was first instituted and whether or not it was actually observed in Israel at all. As is true to this day, there is a tension that exists between true freedom for all and national economic interests. To close today, I'd like to read the lyrics to a hymn written by Charles A. Tindley, an African-American Methodist minister. In 1902, Tindley became the pastor of Calvary Methodist Episcopal Church, a church at which he had been employed as a janitor years before. He served that congregation for more than 3 decades. Ultimately, the building in which that church met was renamed after Reverend Tindley. Tindley Temple United Methodist Church is still an active congregation based in Philadelphia. Reverend Tindley wrote many great hymns that are still a vital part of our United Methodist hymnody. The one I'm going to read to you is entitled Someday, but in our UMC hymnal it is known by its first line, Beams of Heaven as I Go. Beams of heaven as I go, through the wilderness below, guide my feet in peaceful ways, turn my midnights into days. When in the darkness I would grope, faith always sees a star of hope, and soon from all life's grief and danger, I shall be free someday. Oftentimes my sky is clear, joy abounds without a tear. Though a day so bright begun, clouds may hide tomorrow's sun. There'll be a day that's always bright, a day that never yields to night, and in its light the streets of glory I shall behold someday. Harder yet may be the fight, right may often yield to might, wickedness a while may reign, Satan's cause may seem to gain. There is a God that rules above, with hand of power and heart of love. If I am right, he'll fight my battle. I shall have peace someday. Burdens now may crush me down, disappointments all around, troubles speak in mournful sigh, sorrow through a tear-stained eye. There is a world where pleasure reigns, no mourning soul shall roam its plains, and to that land of peace and glory I shall want to go someday. I do not know how long 'twill be, nor what the future holds for me, but this I know, if Jesus leads me, I shall get home someday.